Alafia, Hotep, Kamusta. Welcome to the Mind of Ro page. I am Oba Jaguna, Reinha das Caveras. I am the Queen of Skulls. So I've been gone for a while. I haven't done a live video and it's been like a year, almost a year. So I'm back, y'all. I've been so busy initiating people. I do practice Ifa. I am an Ian Ifa and a Yayan Kimbanda. So I actually have 4 almost now. I have, which is godchildren. So if you're interested in getting initiated, go ahead and contact me. So my last video I made a while back was how to stop trauma bonding. So this one's gonna kind of go with the last one, even though it was a while ago. And I told y'all that when I made the last video that my next video was going to be on how to stop toxic cycles. So that's this video. If you like that kind of stuff, go ahead and be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I also have a TikTok and Instagram and a Twitter at Mind of Ro. And I also have a Facebook business page at The Mind of Ro. And I also do readings. So if you would like to get a reading done, the best place to contact me for that would be on my Instagram page or my Facebook business page, or I also have a WhatsApp, and you can find my WhatsApp on both those pages. So, let's talk about some steps to get out of a toxic cycle. So I wrote down about 7 steps how to get out of a toxic cycle, and I feel like this is a good video to do myself because since I did this I'm fresh out of my Kimbanda initiation. I went through a crazy year of getting out of toxic cycles myself. So let's talk about it. So number 1 is, first of all, to get out of a toxic cycle, you obviously have to realize that you're in a toxic cycle. And a lot of people don't know that they're even in a toxic cycle, because if you knew you were in it, then why would you keep doing it? So number 1 to get out of it would be to realize that you're in a toxic cycle. So red flags you might be in a toxic cycle. Number 1, main one, you're simply not happy. If you wake up every single day and realize that you feel pretty miserable every day, then it's probably because you're stuck in a cycle that you don't want to be in. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the toxic level has to be at like 100% craziness. There's obviously different levels to toxic cycles. It could be small, it could be big, it could be medium. So know that just because it's not huge, giant, and super chaotic things happening in your life, it does not necessarily mean that you're not in a toxic cycle. We are humans, therefore we have human habits, and we're clearly not perfect. So obviously everybody who's watching this is in some kind of toxic cycle and they don't even realize they are. So number 1 sign it's definitely a cycle you need to end, you need to work on, is you're just simply not happy. If you wake up every day and you're like, why am I not happy? Then you need to reevaluate your life and really think about what can be a toxic cycle that you're in that's making you not happy. Another red flag would be, why do I keep going through this? You ever think that sometimes? Why is it that, if you ever ask yourself, like, why do I keep getting into relationships and the same thing keeps happening? Or why is it that every time I work somewhere, it's always like the same, it's the same reaction I get from people? Or why is it I keep feeling like every time I go to this person's house, the same thing keeps happening? Or why is it when I say this, the same thing keeps happening? So that's a red flag you're stuck in a toxic cycle. Or you question yourself, is it me? Yes, it is you. If you keep going through the same thing over and over again, yes, it is you. It's not everybody else. Another red flag you might be stuck in a toxic cycle is people keep telling you the same thing over and over again, and you're just not listening. If you I like to call it like the rule of thumb is 3. I notice if 3 different people tell me the same exact thing, that means I need to recognize it, and that's something I noticed. Obviously, you don't want to take advice from other toxic people. But at the end of the day, if you have 3 different people and totally 3 different, or even the same scenario that you're in, telling you something, you probably should listen. If you have 3 different people in the week tell you that you're a jerk, then you probably need to stop being a jerk. Or if you have 3 different people or multiple people keep telling you that you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, then you probably are. Okay? You need to look in the mirror and be like, why do people keep calling me a pervert? Oh, hold on, my video's tripping. Because you probably are, okay? If people keep repeating the same thing, you need to look in the mirror. Stop being arrogant and prideful and acting like you know everything. You need to like really recognize and look and evaluate yourself and why people are saying this to you on multiple times. Another one is, number 2 is you need to decide what's a better fit for you. So when you realize that you're in a cycle, when you realize like, dang, every time I go to work I feel miserable, or dang, every time I wake up to this person makes me miserable, or every time I hang out with this so-called friend, sometimes we call frenemies, I feel miserable, then what would be a better fit for you? Sometimes we just got to literally say, if I don't like this, then what do I want to replace it with? So what do you want to replace it with? If you're in a miserable relationship, what do you want to replace it with? If you're in a miserable job, what do you want to replace it with? If you don't like the people you're living with, what do you want to replace that with? What would you rather do? You have to contemplate this and really think about what you want. And I'm going to set a really weird example because I'm a hairstylist. I do hair. And one thing it's the pet peeve of mine. I can't stand this when I'm doing something, or like I have to do a consultation with somebody, right? And they don't know what they want. And they're not helping me. I'm like, okay, do you want it shorter? Do you want to keep your hair long? Do you want to trim? Do you want to buzz? What can you give me some kind of idea of what you're looking for? And they're just like, I don't know, just cut it. I'm like, for me, like I can't stand that, you know? So you have to know what you want. If you're stuck in a cycle and you're like, why do I keep going through this? And you're miserable all the time, it's because you don't know what you want, and that's why you're not doing it, you know. And you can't expect other people to know what you want if you don't even know what you want. So the best way to fix a problem is, what do you want that's going to be better for you? If you don't like the situation you are in, then what would you rather have? Like, doesn't get as simple as this question, what do you want? And if you don't know what you want, then you're never going to be able to get a cycle. You can't blame anybody else. You can't blame the world. You can't blame your parents. You can't blame anybody. If you don't know what you want, your cycle is going to continue, basically. So you got to know what's best fit for you. What do you want? You know, do you want to move somewhere? What's your dream job? Figure that out. And then basically you got to be aware of the outside circumstance that's around you, that's happening, that you would rather have different. So that goes into the next one. Number 3 would basically be, what change do you need to make within yourself to make that outcome happen? So first you have to figure out what you want the outcome to be on the outside circumstance. But to make that happen, you got to figure out, well, who do you need to be to make that happen? For example, if you want to be a business owner, who do you need to be a business owner? If you don't like where you're working, you're like, dang, I always want to own my own business, then who do you need to be inside to do that? You have to get educated. You have to know how to run a business. You have to be business minded. How are you business minded? You got to study. You know, you can't just run into a business and run a business and then you're not business minded and inside, you know? Like, for example, you can't be a hairstylist if you don't know how to do hair. You know, you can't have a healthy relationship with anybody else if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. So if you're like, I want to have a healthy relationship with somebody, then who do you need to be within yourself to make that happen on the outside? And we got to own that. We got to figure out, what do we need to do to make that happen? If you want to own a house, what do you need to do? Like, we have to evaluate it. Now you know what you want. What do you need to do to make it happen? How do you get a loan? How do you get all the steps to get there? Everyone's a dreamer. Have you ever met people that just dream, and they never do? They have 1,000 million dreams, it doesn't happen. It's because their heads are in the clouds. We got to get our heads out the clouds and bring it to earth and ground ourselves into this physical reality and make it happen and take the ownership. We also have like a concept of like wishful thinking, where people just pray to God, God, I want to win the lottery. God, I want to have all the successful businesses. God, I want to have the best relationship ever. But you don't play the lottery. You don't take the steps to own a business, and you're toxic in relationships. It's wishful thinking. You know, we got to take our prayers and bring it down to earth, bring it here to make it reality. So the only one that could do that is basically you. So to get out of a toxic cycle is we got to own up to that. We got to say, okay, if I want to create that, what are the things I got to do? If you're not studying to be a politician, then don't expect to be a politician. You know what I'm saying? We can't blame anybody else. We got to take the steps to do it. So I was going to set an example as well when it comes to making change. So I have a history of being in the past of being in toxic relationships. So this previous couple years, I've been really learning to master relationships, not only romantically, but also with the opposite sex, and also being aware of myself. So that was my personal toxic cycle that I had to leave over this last year. And the reason why I'm making this video, because I had to experience that and go through that myself. So my personal experience of dealing with that myself, like for example, I didn't want to be in toxic relationships anymore. I'm tired of being with somebody and then they end up being somebody else and I didn't realize that they were from the beginning. I should have picked up the signs from the beginning. Or they don't last very long, and it's very short-lived relationships. And I was tired of it, and I was like, okay, it's me. I know it's me, and I need to own up to me. So I took the ownership of saying, hey, what am I doing in my relationship to make sure that they don't last? Why am I picking the wrong person? Why am I picking the wrong man? Instead of getting, oh, I hate men, blah, which of course is normal to go through a phase. Of course I went through my phase. Everybody does. Like men go through it too. Everybody goes through the phase. I hate love, I never want love again. Or women are like, I hate men, like I hate women. We have the sex war going on, which I would love to make a video of that as well, and how toxic it is and how much we need to get out of that. But let's not get into that right now. So I had to go within myself and figure it out. So I started studying relationships. I started studying love, and I started studying the concept of attachment and our inner child, my inner child and stuff like that. Because when you're in a relationship with somebody, your inner child comes out and starts acting a fool. We know everybody's done it. It's just, we're weird. Like we act human, we do human stuff. So I had to go in and figure out, what is my habit in the inside that is reflecting my attraction to men on the outside. So I had to study, and I did a bunch of studying. So I tapped into attachment theory, and my next video is going to be on that. And that's what I had to do for myself to get out of a cycle. Was I studied attachment theory. Attachment theory basically says that if you were raised from a baby to a child to an adult from a parental figure or parental figures that gave you security or neglected you or abused you, creates an attachment within yourself, and you tend to reflect that attachment in your adult relationships. So I had to study that myself and figure out not what everybody else was, but I did do that, but I had to study myself first and figure out what was my attachment. And I learned that my attachment was avoidant. So I had to read into that. And then as I studied this attachment, I learned, as I'm studying myself, I know how to be able to read other people to find out, okay, that person's anxiety attached, that person's secure, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm able to see it, not in a judgmental perspective, but I can recognize that now. But it took a lot of self-reflection on myself and ownership to say, hey, I'm an avoidant. I tend to shy away or pull away when love is given. I tend to attract it easy, but then pull away. And I like to be chased. And that was, I had to own it. I had to figure out, I had to fix that within myself. So doing so, I changed. I spent some time with myself. I was alone for about a year, and I evaluated myself, and I took a lot of time to evaluate what I'm doing and how not only was I doing that with romance, I was doing it with my loved ones, I was doing it with friends, and I had to check myself and evaluate, why am I doing this, and stopping myself. So that's just my example of stopping a toxic cycle, and then realizing when I am doing it to someone else. So I do have omos, which are godchildren, that when you have godchildren, they come to you for advice. And I had to catch even myself, like saying, oh, leave me alone. That's an avoidant thing to do, and I'm like, I can't do that to anybody. I shouldn't be doing that to either godchildren, my own children, family. Obviously, we need to set boundaries, yes, but that's just my personal experience of, I had to learn how to stop a toxic cycle within myself, and I had to own it. And now since I've owned it, I've attracted healthy relationships that are more harmonious. Towards, like, It's respectful. I respect what they want and their needs. They respect mine. And it's so much in harmony. And also, I have attracted a more healthy relationship in my life. I am in a relationship now, and I know it's just more harmonious. I'm not abused. I'm not being abusive. I'm not pulling away. I'm not attached. And that's just my personal experience of learning how to get out of a toxic cycle. So my next step to you on getting out of toxic cycle number 4 would be to get help and guidance. So for me to have been able to get out of a toxic cycle myself, I had to get help, and the best way to do that is to speak to people who are experienced in the cycle you're specifically trying to leave. People who are supportive of you wanting to change. Obviously, you don't want to, talk to people who want you to stay there. Some people can't handle people changing, don't be around those people. Or watch, I have a lot of videos. I have videos on all kinds of things. I have videos about, alcoholism, drug addiction, all kinds of addiction if you're trying to leave that kind of stuff. Setting boundaries in relationships to have healthy relationships in your life. I have I have things about being in tune and being in my last 4 videos was all about emotions. So if we're in a toxic cycle, it's emotional for us. It's because we're trying to hide our emotions, or we're blowing up in our emotions. That's what a cycle is. So please check those videos out. That'll help you get out of a toxic cycle if you're in one, especially if it's emotional driven, which I believe all toxic cycles are emotionally driven. So check out videos that's going to help you with that. Find support groups, find AA meetings or something like that. Talking to priests, priestesses, counselors, guidance counselors, or you get some help. You're not a one-man island. It's okay to reach out and say I need help. And the reason why a lot of people don't get help or know things they don't know is because they refuse to get help. We all need to understand we're human, and we only know what we know. And there's a plenty of knowledge out there that we don't already know. And if you're stuck in a cycle, obviously there's something that you don't know that you need to know. And it's okay to just let go of your ego and your pride a little bit and say, hey, I need some help. I don't know what to do. It's okay to say that. And just look up some videos or reach for help. I'm an ENIFA. I help people all the time. Reach out to me if you would like. And if you need men to support you, I have men in my group. So just know if you're a man and you're like, I need a man to help, or a man to be around, I have men that are almost. So if you want men to be around, cool. If you want women to be around, there's women in the group as well. So that's an option. So definitely get some help and guidance. You don't need to be alone with everything. You're not alone. You're not the first person whatever cycle you're going through, you're not the first person. I highly doubt it. So the next one is, because sometimes we feel alone sometimes. We're like, oh my God, am I the only one going through this? No, you're not. You're not the only one going through it, okay? Number five is find supportive friends. Like I just said earlier, like a group, but also be mindful of who you're hanging out with in general. Like if you know you have a toxic sister that drinks a lot and you don't want to drink, you probably shouldn't be hanging out with her at the bar all the time. If you want to stop smoking crack, then stop hanging out with crackhead friends. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you guys can keep it simple. You know what I mean? If you want to be rich, you might want to find some rich friends, because you are like the sum of the people you hang out with, If you want to be enlightened, if you want to live a spiritually enlightened life and better your life and eat healthy food, live a healthy life, be one with God, and be all peaceful, then hang out with people who's on the same boat as you, You're not going to find that if you're hanging out with a bunch of people who just want to just watch negative news and sports and drink alcohol, and you're over here trying to be a Buddhist monk. you know what I mean? Figure out, be mindful of who you're hanging out with. I'm not saying you have to disown everybody, because I do practice African traditional religion, and I do have a friend who's Christian, so I'm not saying, like, just because you do one thing, you gotta disown everybody. But I mean, if you're gonna ask advice from people or get support from people and stuff like that, just be mindful of who you're hanging out with. You know, be mindful of who you're getting support from. I'm not saying you have to disown or hate everyone who doesn't believe what you believe or isn't doing what you're doing, because that's arrogance and ego and pride. But I mean, on a regular basis, if you're going to be hanging out with certain people on a constant basis, just be really mindful of who you're hanging out with. It's okay to kind of shut the door and only keep it cracked open to certain people and keep your door wide open to another group of people, if you know what I'm saying. Number 6 would be, you have to allow yourself to get uncomfortable. Like when I was learning to leave my cycle, I was so uncomfortable. I hated it. I kept doubting myself, like why am I doing this? Or, oh, I wanted to go back to that. In my head, I'd be like, oh, I just want to like shut down. I want to be in avoidance so bad and just, I just want to be by myself. I don't want to deal with, you know, that's my, like, avoidant habit that I had. So, like, I noticed, like, my mind would want to, like, bounce back to my old habits. So you have to allow yourself to get uncomfortable. And when you get uncomfortable, trust me, a lot of your pride and ego will get in the way. Your pride's going to come up and be like, oh, no, I was happier when I was this way. Don't lie to yourself. You know damn straight you was not happy when you was acting that way, and that's why you need to change now. But a lot of times we'll trick ourselves and lie to ourselves and be like, oh, I was better when I was doing it that way. Then why are you trying to change it? Why did you own up to the fact that you toxic cycle? Why do you know you need to change it? Because like when people try to stop drinking alcohol, for example, they'll be like, well, I like who I was when I was drinking. I was more fun. So that's going to be excuse to be an alcoholic? You know what I'm saying? Like, be mindful of the arrogance in your own head. All humans have arrogance. All humans are prideful at some level. That's why we're human. That's why we're here, and that's why we're not one with Godhead yet, and that's why we're divided. That's why we're in this dimension in the first place. We are here to learn to ascend out of this ego that we're in. To be a human is ego. So, we gotta own it. You know, like, when you're learning to be uncomfortable, that's the first thing that's gonna pop up. Also, fear. We get fearful. We feel like we're unsafe because we're so safe being in our toxic cycle, because it feels so comfortable, because that's where we were at. Like, let's say, for example, if you grew up with an abusive parent, mom always screaming and yelling growing up, you're gonna be subconsciously attracted to a partner that's gonna do the same thing. If you had a mom always yelling at you, if you're a man, guess what kind of woman you're going to be subconsciously attracted to? A woman that's always hollering and yelling and cussing at you. And then you're like, why do I keep doing this? But then when you're with a woman who's calm and quiet, you're bored, right? Yeah, this relationship's boring. I go back to a toxic woman who talks crazy. And then when you go back to a toxic woman, you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Cycle. Toxic cycle. You know? So we gotta be mindful of that. It means you need to allow yourself to get uncomfortable. Allow yourself to stop being fearful. Or like, this happens a lot too. Like, oh my God, like I am so uncomfortable being in this one job because they're pushing my boundaries. I'm scared I'm gonna mess it all up and I'm gonna get fired. So I just won't try to work there. That's a cycle. That's a fear saying, don't do better, because if you try to do better, you're gonna fail. So we have to like be mindful of getting out of cycles and allow us to get uncomfortable. Allow us ourselves to be like, okay, if I do, I'm gonna be okay regardless. You know, allow myself, if you're not used to calm relationships, allow yourself to be bored. Take ownership of it. If you're bored in calmness but not bored in toxicity, then you need to own that. You need to be like, yo, I need to fix this. Don't take it out on another person. Yeah, it's your problem. You gotta figure it out, you know? So we need to own up to these things. Everything from arrogance to pride to fear to boredom. When we're not in a toxic situation, when we're not doing things that's like working overtime at Walmart, knowing damn straight that's not what you want to do for the rest of your life, but you're too scared to do something else, you know, because you're scared of the change, you're scared of the transition or whatever. You got to be mindful of, you have to allow yourself to get comfortable, whether it's chaotically moving away from the situation or calmly learning to be in calmness and you're used to toxicity. So if you're not allowing yourself to get uncomfortable, you got to own it. You need to like constantly find that support system that's going to, sometimes you need that person in your ear like, girl, you could do this. You know, sometimes you need that person by you. Sometimes you need that guy that's like pumping you up, like, man, you do it. it. Because if you don't have that person, that's called self-sabotage. You're going to go in there and self-sabotage, go right back to the toxic cycle you're not supposed to be doing, and you know you're not supposed to be doing. And then when you get back there, you're going to cry and complain and be like, I'm doing the same thing. And play all the victim, woe is me. Nobody want to hear that, okay? Number 7 is, the most obvious, like I said repeatedly already in the video, is take ownership, man. You got to take ownership if you're in a toxic cycle. It is not your woman's fault. It is not your dad's fault. It is not your children's fault. It is not your boss's fault. It is nobody's fault but yours. It is your life. It is your job. It is your brain. It is your emotions. It is your actions and your reactions or lack of actions that you're taking. You need to change the way you respond to people. You got to change your actions. You got to change the way you think. You got to change the way your emotions are making you react in life. You need to do that. You can't, if you're in a toxic relationship, you cannot always blame your partner, even if they are toxic. You need to learn how to change your response in that relationship, and you need to learn how to attract better relationships. You do. Not that person. You do. If you do not like your manager and you do not like your job, you cannot keep saying, I can't stand all these people over here, this stupid other ratchet, all you do is talk behind my back, and this boss is just controlling about. You chose to work there. You are choosing to stay there. You are not choosing to grow in the business. You are not choosing to do the other business you want to. You are choosing not to do that. You are choosing to not make a difference. You are choosing to focus on other people you work with and not focus on yourself. You are the one making things a big deal. And if it is a big deal, you are the one making the choice to not change it. You are. Not your boss. Not the staff you work with. You. So that's the last point, is ownership. You are the one co-creating and soul-creating your reality, and you need to take ownership of it. If you do not want to take ownership of it, then you have no place to complain. Point blank. So, if you need support in this kind of stuff, I am an Ianifa and a Kumbandera, a Yaya and Kumbandera. I support people. My group supports people all the time. If you need help, if you need guidance, if you need protection, if you need healing, I offer that. My group offers that. If you need that, if you want to get a reading done, go ahead and message me. What we do is, I'll do a reading and find out what needs to be done to change things around your life. So you're not alone. If you need that, reach out and let me know. If you're interested in just a reading, we could do that. If you're interested in getting initiated and being involved, if you're interested just to get to know me or just to get to know the group, then you could be on Discord calls. I have a Discord group, server, if you would like to be part of that server, where I do private video chats all the time, about 1 to 3 times a week. I'm on there doing private chats back and forth with people. If you would like to be on that to get to know me, get to know the group and what I do and stuff like that, then you're more than welcome to be on that. It's a private server. If you would like to have the link to that, just private message me and I'll give you the link for that. Obviously, you need to be a respectful person. If you're rude and disrespectful, I will kick you off. Okay, so be nice. Alright, so other than that, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro, and I hope everyone is having a super conscious, mindful day. Ankh Uttasaneb, Namaste, Odabo, peace.